Okay, this is actually my favorite kind of video to make, where we work with pencil and paper. And today I've got the camera at a different angle, so hopefully my hand will not be covering up what I'm trying to write. This is page 46 from your course pack. There are 3 examples here where I'm going to ask you to write 3 upper voices above the given figured baseline. This is a baseline with figures under it. This is known as figured bass. And we'll start out by writing in Roman numerals. This is how you should start your assignment. So I'll give you some hints on most of these chords. First of all, we have 2 sharps here, and the first and last bass note of the excerpt is a B. Remembering that the bass line controls the harmony, that is a strong suggestion that this is not D major, but it's B minor. So I'm going to write B here, small b, colon, and we're going to continue in B minor. The other hint is that there's a sharp here in the figures, and in our course, which is all diatonic, either in major key or staying within a minor key without modulating, the only reason why we have accidentals normally is when we're in minor to raise scale degree 6 and 7. So that sharp is also another hint that we are in B minor. Okay, so let's do a little Roman numeral analysis. We have a B here. We're in B minor, so that represents a 1 chord. There's no figure below below the B, so this is just a 1 in root position. Here we have a D with a 6 below it, so this is going to be a 1-6 chord because D is the third of the 1 triad. B, D, F sharp. As you're starting this, it's good to review what the basic triads are in this key. The 1 triad is going to be B, D, F sharp. The 4 triad will be E, G, B. The 5 triad, remembering to raise the leading tone, is going to be F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. So with that in mind, let's go on to the next chord here. The bass note is E. There's no figure below it, so this has got to be a triad in root position. That scale degree is 4, so this is going to be a 4 chord in root position because there's no figure with it. I'll let you figure out this one, and let's go on to this. So our topic, as it says on the top of the paper, is Cadential 6-4, and we recognize these figures from the earlier video that I made and from your chapter. We expect to see a 5 chord with 6-4 resolving to 5-3. Now, instead of a 3 here, there's a sharp, but we remember from our study of figured bass that a sharp by itself applies to the third of a chord. So, what's actually happening here, and this is what you should write, is this is a cadential 6-4, 5, 6-4 to 5-3, and in this case you do write the 3 here when it's with a Roman numeral because the capital quality of the Roman numeral tells us that when that 4 comes down to 3, it's coming to a major third of this chord, an A sharp in other words. So this is how this should look, 5-6-4 to 5-3, and I'll let you figure out what the last chord is. Oh, well, I think I can hear you telling me this, that it is a 1 chord. So we'll go with that because we're going to need to know that as we start writing. Okay, now normally the first thing we would do is write a good soprano line with good voice leading, a good counterpoint against the bass line, but we have a step before that in working with Cadential 6-4, and that's what that video was all about. We're going to have to put in our dissonant note, our red note from the video in pencil. It's not going to be in red, but let's figure out what the note is going to be right on this cadential 6-4 chord. That's going to be the dissonant note that we're concerned about. You may remember that that note always ends up being tonic, so the dissonant note we're looking for is B. We can put it in any of the upper 3 voices, but for our first example, let's put that in the soprano. So there it is. There's our dissonant note, and we remember that we're always writing the same rhythm in the soprano that we have in the bass line. Later in your theory career, you'll start writing sopranos that move faster than basses, or basses that move faster than sopranos and move independently. But for now, everything is in a chorale texture, all moving together. Okay, so that creates the perfect fourth above the bass line. I should have played the bass line for you to start this out. An octave lower. Sounds kind of solemn. All right. When we get to this note, we know that we've created a dissonance, and the bass is not moving, although it could drop an octave, but it's still going to stay on F sharp. So this note, the tonic note, has to resolve down to the leading tone. You remember that from my video lecture. So let's do that part of this. We're just doing this like a little cookbook. This is what we have to do according to that list of steps. All right, and so we have the dissonant note and we have its resolution. We're also worried about the preparation of the dissonant note. We never leap to a dissonance. We always approach it by common tone if we can, or by step. All right, well, at this point, I can see we're going to have to think about what this chord actually is. There's a 6 below that E. So that means the root of this chord is C sharp. Sometimes I will put a little dot there to remind myself, because we're looking at a chord in first inversion, therefore the third of the chord is in the bass. So the root of the chord has to be C sharp, E is the third of the chord, and the other note in the chord is that G. That can help to have those little dots there to help remember what's what. So we're looking at a chord whose root is C sharp. We're in the key of B, so this is a 2 chord. 2 is diminished in minor. You can confirm that for yourself if we play the scale. And then pick the notes of the 2 chord. It sounds diminished. It is diminished. So here's 2 diminished, and the notes of the chord are C sharp, E, and G. Now, there's no B there, so we can't do a common tone of a B preparing this B. But what we can do is approach the B by step. Is one of these notes a step away from B? The C sharp is, the E is not, and the G is not. So we'll put a C sharp in the soprano. I hope my thinking is clear enough there. We just pick a note that's in the chord and allows the smoothest possible approach to that dissonant note. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of the soprano line done already. The next thing we can do is we know where that A sharp has to go. It's the leading tone, it's in the soprano, and we're about to go from a 5 chord to a 1 chord, so it has to come back to tonic. So there. That is a lot of your soprano figured out just entirely by following the cookbook of how to handle cadential 6/4 chords. Here, by the way, is the 4th going to the raised 3rd. You see that in the figures right here. That line is going from the 4th to the raised 3rd and then coming back to tonic. Okay, other things you're going to want to do in harmonizing this are double the bass. So one of the other voices is going to have F sharp, F sharp. In the first measure, we can recognize we have B to D, 1 to 1/6 chord. And I think you know a typical good soprano voice for that would create a voice exchange. So you can go from B to D in the bass and go from D to B in the soprano. That'll work very well for this expansion of 1. Okay, as we move down to the second example that I want to work on, let's first thing confirm what key it's in. I've written some notes in already here, but on your sheet it's blank and you just have a bass line that goes like this. Key signature of 2 flats and this. So you have to determine what key that is. Well, it begins and ends on B flat, cadences with a sol, sol, do, like that. There are no G's anywhere, so it can't be G minor. The only other thing it could be is B flat. So we write our key here, B flat, colon. So all the Roman numerals are going to be reckoned against B flat. So I wrote in the first chord for you, one chord under the B flat with no figure. That means it's a one triad. The next chord, here's how we figure this out. There's a 4-3 on your sheet, and we can expand the 4-3 figure to 6-4-3, right? You know that that's an inversion of a seventh chord, and all the notes that you're going to find above this bass note are 6, 4, and 3, those intervals above the C. So let's just write those in as dots. I've done it already. A third above C is E, a fourth above C is F, and a sixth above C is that A there. So now we can look at this group of four notes, realize that it's a seventh chord, and find the root of the chord which we'll use to determine the Roman numeral. So you remember the trick when we have two notes together like that E flat and the F a second apart, the upper note is the root. So F is the root of this chord. So we just count and find what scale degree is F in the key of B flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So F is the fifth scale degree in B flat. That means we are looking at a 5 chord. So this is an inversion of the 5-7 chord. It's a 5-4-3, and not coincidentally, the 4-3 that was here originally in the figures now shows up attached to the Roman numeral. So 5-4-3 chord. The next chord, I don't need to do this for you, but I did write it in anyway. 1-6 chord, because there's a D in the bass line. D is the third of the chord, so we're back to 1-6, and our bass line is just like when we have 1-7-6 to 1-6, but this time we have 5-4-3 in the middle instead. Like that. Over here, you're going to have to find the dissonant note above the bass note of F, and I've mentioned before that the dissonant note ends up just being tonic. So you can write your dissonant note into the tenor voice, or you can write it into the soprano or alto voice. Either place you're going to have a B flat. Don't double it, so one of these dots is going to have to get erased, but this just means that you have your choice of whether to voice lead your dissonant note into the tenor or into one of the two upper voices. You'll prepare it as well as you can. With this figure here, it's going to end up being by step. Then you resolve it down by step to the leading tone in the 5-5-3 chord and resolve that normally. So you'll handle the 6-4, the cadential 6-4 in this example just the way we did in the upper B minor example. The last thing I want to mention to you is something from last week's material, and that is how do we do the voice leading for a 6-4-3 chord. That's an inversion of a 5-7 chord, right? This is the same notes as 5-7, but we just have a different bass note, so it ends up being 5-4-3. And the rule in resolving a seventh chord is the seventh has to resolve down by step. So I've done some of this here for you already. These dots are just here. We're not going to put four voices on the bass clef. I just put these dots here to figure out what the notes are in the chord, and then erase them and go on and write the chord spread across both staves. So now we know the chord is going to have F, A, C, and E flat, the same notes as a 5-7 chord. We can erase them. And knowing that when we write SATB, we try to write complete seventh chords if they're inverted. So we're not going to leave any notes out. So we've got to have an F, A, C's in the bass, and an E flat. The note that we're thinking about right now is the E flat because it's the 7th of the chord. So I decided, well, let's put the 7th in the alto. That seems to leave enough space for a tenor and a soprano above it. So that's going to be the critical note that has to resolve down. So if you don't do this, I'm going to put this on your paper. I'm going to put an arrow from the 7th down to the note it's supposed to resolve to, which is D. So resolve your 7ths down. So we have the C, the E flat. We still need an F and an A. So possibly if we voice the first chord like this with F in the tenor, see how I voiced that chord? Like that. To make a nice boring inner voice, I would probably just want to hold that F through in the tenor to the next note. Now we need an A to complete the chord, so we'll bring that B flat down to the A there. And this would be a good beginning for your exercise on this one. The most important thing being that the 7th of this chord, the 5-4-3, resolves down. Now here you have a leading tone in the soprano. You know where that should go, and you can finish this one up. The third example is the last one I want you to do on this sheet, and that just contains the same kind of thing that we've been talking about. We do have an inversion of the 5-7 chord, but now you know how to do that, and we've gone over how to do the cadential 6-4. Okay. The other part of your assignment for this week is to do some Roman numeral analysis from page 47 of your course pack. We have some nice C major music here. Should be relatively easy to write the chords in. And the only thing I want to tell you, I wrote it into the assignment instructions, put parentheses around this E right here. This is a non-chord tone that we don't want to take into account when we're figuring out the chord. So for this chord, it's the 4th blank. We're going to have F in the bass and the tenor, A in the alto. Ignore the E, but use the D. So you'll be able to do that. And my hint to you is this is all about cadential 6-4s. So you should find a cadential 6-4 somewhere in this excerpt and the next one on the sheet. And they're always going to go 5-6-4 to 5-3. And you'll write the 6-4 to 5-3 with the little dashes going from one to the other and make it look like the other analyses we've seen. All right, that should be enough to get you going on these. And please stay in touch. Write to me if you have any questions about this. And hopefully I'll see you in the Zoom meeting on Wednesday, and we'll answer lots of questions at that time.